Welcome everyone back and forth with Becker Orr. Lots of great topics and see them on the bottom of the screen with the leadoff topic. Will gold hit a brand new record high? Let's just jump right in, Kevin. I'll pull up the chart and you give me your thoughts. There's a chart of gold. Is it going to get above that line, above $2,079 per ounce?
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, if we take a look at the way gold's played, and there's really, it's hard to predict what it's going to do. I mean, you take a look at the high beforehand. 2011 was the high. It then took 9 years before it hit a new high. So, and again, over that time frame, we've had a variety of different things going on. Though, granted, most of that time, we haven't really had a recession in that scenario. So things haven't come around. But yeah, what we're seeing now is it's sort of playing the opposite. You get that fear of recession, I think, and the price of gold starts to go up. As long as that is there, I think we do have the option of possibly hit a new high. And again, there's a variety of different factors, right? Why are people buying it? What's the rationale? I mean, back in 2020, all of a sudden, Bitcoin was the new gold. And then all of a sudden, we found Bitcoin wasn't the new gold. So, I mean, gold is definitely one that has different purposes for different people. But, and again, it's one of those things that, yeah, could easily go to a brand new high than the one that we saw back in 2019, 2020.
Yeah, and I'll pull this up here and we can look at the factors. I mean, 2011 hit a high. At that time, everyone's saying, oh, it's 2,000, 3,000, all the crazy speculation. Yep. And then went nowhere for the better part of a decade. And then it went sideways for about 3 years, hit a high in 2020. And then you can see it chopped around and lost some ground, came up, lost some ground again. Now it's coming back up. But key note here, lots of people say gold and inflation hedge. I think the last few years have proven that's not really the case.
Not at all.
Inflation was quite high in 2022. And you notice on the chart, that's when gold went down. Like the last pullback, when it made a run at the high, that was 21. And then throughout 22, it fell. And then really, it's just the last 5-6 months you've seen the increase as inflation's been coming down. Gold's been going up. I think in my mind, more a story of the U.S. dollar or perhaps even real interest rates, inflation-adjusted rates. One of those could be more of a key factor with gold. And if the U.S. dollar continues to fall, which we have seen the last 6 months, and lo and behold, gold has been going up during that time period, I see no reason why you can't get to a brand new high. We'll see. It's been turned away. I'll pull the chart up. It's been turned away at that level a couple of times already. Maybe this will be the time it breaks through. We'll have to see. But if the U.S. dollar keeps falling, inflation keeps rolling over, I think that's an environment that would be positive for gold overall. And related to that story, though, Kevin, is inflation. And remember when everyone said inflation's going to the moon, it's going to hit 10%, 12%? Well, it definitely not going to stop high. But we just got the U.S. data recently and the Canadian data this morning. Different story now.
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing is an exact opposite move of what happened basically through 2022. We had inflation that spiked like we'd never seen in that sort of time frame through 2021. You're around 1%. Next thing you know, you're at 9%. Now, all of a sudden, and since June, which seems to be the peak month, here we are 8-9 months later, and you're at the U.S., you're at 5%. Canada this morning, as you mentioned, we're down at 4.3%, and that could fall even faster going down. And again, the rationale behind this has been that fast, massive interest rate increase. I mean, we haven't seen percentages like that ever. It's a historic event that went on, and as we're seeing, it is having that desired effect on inflation. Things are coming down. Prices have gotten high. People are all of a sudden not chasing those goods anymore. So yeah, I mean, as we see this, I keep thinking that we're going to see it go lower and lower at a fairly quick pace, as opposed to that, okay, well, maybe it hovers here or, higher for longer scenarios. All of a sudden you have to worry about disinflation, I think, more than inflation going up.
Yeah, and quickly for that chart, lots going on there. The line there, the blue line, 5%. This is U.S. data. This is headline inflation. Lots of ways people measure inflation. You might hear PCE, you might hear core. Core is when they strip out some items. Headline is just everything year-over-year number. That's normally the one that's quoted in the media. That's what you see here for the U.S. data. And the 5% spike, Kevin, we've never seen a spike of inflation above 5% without a recession, which are those gray shaded zones on this particular chart. And that kind of leads into what we're talking about here, right? Why did we see inflation spike? Because it had all the stimulus, you had the lockdowns, and then they cranked interest rates to deal with inflation. But maybe one of the consequences of them pushing rates so high is that they slowed the economy down so much, you end up in a recession. That's kind of the trade-off here. You either get smash inflation, but you could push us to a recession. I think that is a very real possibility, right? And that kind of speaks to a disinflation point. If the economy slows down, you could very much be in that situation.
Yeah, you get that big push-pull going, and that's the biggest problem. I mean, we haven't really seen these sort of sizable spikes ever. We've always seen inflation go up at a fairly, constant pace, and it come down at a fairly constant pace. But with everything that happened via pandemic, all of a sudden you're now in a different regime. Now, does it mean that we're going to work differently? That's what's hard to say. Will we avoid recession? Again, just based on the way inflation and interest rates go. It's going to have an effect, but we're going to have to watch how this plays out over the next number of months.
Exactly. Let's get to the lightning round here, Kevin. You know how it works. I'm going to have rapid-fired questions. We'll each take turns, see how many we can get through. We'll put each other in the hot seat there. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I'll put my intelligence glasses on. I don't care. I'm game for whatever you want to do.
Okay, well, I wrote these down, and I got to start off by taking a bit of a jab at you. Last time we talked about the Jets, you said they're not making the playoffs, and here we are, game 1 tonight against the Knights. So I got to do a follow-up. What's your prediction for the series, Jets and Knights?
Well, you know what? As much as I was a harbinger of no, they weren't going to make it based on 2.5 months of horrid play, I actually am going to take the Jets in this series. I think that they're being taken too lightly. I think that slide had really done things. On paper, they are actually a better metrics team than what you're finding in Vegas. And even though Vegas gets Mark Stone back tonight, part of that, let's put him on LTIR until the playoffs come, and then we can jump that salary cap scenario. Yeah. I honestly believe that we are going to see a Jets victory in 7 sometime.
That's fingers crossed. I'm certainly hoping that is the case. Economic question for you, or I should say interest rate question. We talked inflation, we talked gold. Key to both those stories is interest rates. Central Bank in Canada has already hit the pause button. The U.S. central banks talked about it, but they haven't really hit the button yet. So when is the Fed actually going to pivot?
I think that what you're going to get, you may not get a decrease immediately, but you are going to get a stop, I think, after their rate increase that I feel they're going to do in May. I still think that you've got that out there. Things have looked better, but I think that Powell wants one last increase, and then he's going to say, that's it. I'm pausing it. I'm not going to worry about it from there. So one more increase for the U.S., then they hit the pause button.
And that's it. That's the prediction. One more, and then they're done. I got to bring up Succession. We're both big fans. And remember last time you asked me about Succession, I said Logan's going to die. Lo and behold, a couple episodes in. Now, granted, that's an easy prediction when the show is called Succession.
Succession.
But I got to ask you about Succession. Now that they're doing the machinations to see who takes over, who eventually takes over for Raystar Waco? Who do you think actually gets the seat?
Wow, you're already reading my mind on questions I was going to ask the same way. So my guess, just the way that things have gone, I mean, everybody assumes, Kendall's had that scenario. Shiv, it would be nice to get that thing going. I honestly think at the end of the day, Roman is going to run this company. Ooh. He was the COO. He hasn't had the same scenario. I'm going with Roman. I'm not going with an outside source. I'm going with Roman.
There you go. Last question for you. We had lots of U.S. banks stress, talking back economics. You saw Silicon Valley Bank and a few others go under. Do we see more stress in the U.S. financial system in the months ahead?
No, I don't believe we will. I think a lot of that's been curbed. I think the fact that inflation's come down, I think the theory that you're going to have interest rates stop is going to put people in a better mindset going forward. So I think that the U.S. banking crisis that's been sitting around, at least in those mid-level banks, and the fact that you've had better than expected earnings out of the big banks to start this earnings quarter, I really think that we're past that one.
Okay, well, switch gears here. I'm going to take a sip of coffee to get well caffeinated for my responses, and you can hit me with some questions.
Well, now that you've taken my favorite ones away, I'm going to start the other way. Okay, I've done the Jets prediction. Now, judging the fact that we have 3 Canadian teams in, is this the year a Canadian team wins the Stanley Cup?
It's going to be tough in the East to get by Boston. In the West, you still got to deal with Colorado and Dallas. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I really hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that'll be the case.
That's exactly. Well, we'll see what goes on from there.
And if it's the Leafs, I'm not going to count it. So it's
not the same way. Toronto doesn't matter that way. Question number 2 is, as you've mentioned, we were talking about inflation and everything else. Every time we've gone over 5%, do we see a recession in North America this year?
We're in a very weird spot with the economy, with the stimulus we had, with the lockdowns. There's really no parallel, no historical comparison given everything we went through, but it'd be very unusual for the economy at least not to slow down to a point where they call that a recession. Now, is that a collapse? Is that a crash? Probably not, but I would be the highest probability outcome is likely some form of recession. Maybe not this year, maybe it's into next year, but I think you see some form of economic recession.
Okay, now dealing with the movie side of things, we've done TV and Succession, both Marvel fans. Guardians comes out in 2 weeks. Will this movie be the biggest grossing movie of 2023?
I think it will. The first 2 were phenomenal. You've got lots of clout behind them because it's slightly different than the other Marvel movies, right? You have a different director. It's been consistent with the cast. If the movie turns in kind of same gear as number 1 and number 2, I think number 3 could be the biggest movie of the year, definitely.
Okay, and finishing this off, I have one last question left. Now, we've said inflation's there, it's coming down and everything else. OPEC, of course, recently cut another 1 million barrels. Mm-hmm. Do we see an increase in OPEC before the end of the year in supply?
No, I think they want to see oil prices go higher. And if you go with my prior response, if the economy does in fact start slowing down, that could eat into your demand. It'd be hard for them to increase if you do in fact see economic demand slowing. So no, I don't think OPEC. Maybe they don't do another cut, but I can't see them doing the opposite. I can't see them pushing more supply on the market. So it was a quick lightning round. We love to go through those, Kevin. And of course, if people have questions they want us to answer, maybe they're related to finance, maybe they're not. We'll take both. We are not picky when it comes to questions, but where should they go?
We should go to chatwithclintonandkevin.com. By all means, give us the questions. We're more than happy to answer anything, whether it be financial, movies, sports. You can think of it. We're even deal with arts and anything along those lines. So that's everything that we want for Back and Forth today. We will do another one of these soon. So stay tuned and let's see what we can come up with next topics.
Take care.